Good evening, everyone. So, welcome to our event. On behalf of our organizer, this organizers, Tsinghua Alumni Association at Greater Boston, and Mighty Chief and Lesela Deep Intelligence Group. I would like to thank everyone for coming. To begin with, I would love to introduce our speaker who just flew from Southern California to Boston yesterday. Right. Okay. And Dr. Hao Zou is founder and the CEO of Abundy, a FinTech startup. He can talk more about that. I'm not very familiar with. Before he founded that company, he was working at PIMCO, work on something I'm not familiar with as well. And prior to his career at PIMCO, he finished his Ph.D. and several other degrees at Stanford in 3 years. And that's pretty great. I mean, especially I'm a fifth-year Ph.D. trying to graduate. And our moderator is Dr. Lin Wei, who is Vice President at Wellington Management Company. I know you guys are here not to see me, so I will put my mic here and let the heroes to start the light.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Zhou.
Good evening. Actually, I flew from Beijing to Boston yesterday, so there might be a small jet lag, if you can forgive me. Yes.
Well, I have to say it's my great pleasure to have you here tonight. So when I look at your bio, which is not described in detail by the organizer yet, it was pretty amazing. So look at, I guess, amazing, impressive is an understatement of your achievement. I would call it a miracle. So let's put, because you did not say that, so probably I go to the detail. Look at the list of your achievements, right? I just picked some of them. So 30, under 30, meaning top 30, under years of 80, or under years of 30. Not that old yet.
I'm under 80. I'm sure of that.
That's true too, right?
Yeah, that's true.
30 under 30 in finance by Forbes. And the youngest portfolio manager in PIMCO before 30. And the youngest permanent member of America Portfolio Committee, which is a decision-making committee within PIMCO. And 4 degrees, 4 doctorate and master degree from Stanford in 3 years. So PhD in EE, master in EE, MBA and master in economic. And everything is completed in 3 years from beginning to the end. So that is pretty amazing. Well, I correct myself. That's a miracle. So if anyone have any of them, they must be very proud of it. And that kind of achievement would be the shining diamond in their resume. And you have a chain of diamonds. So, and you built this chain in about 7 years. I guess you come here in
2006.
2006, right?
Yeah.
And you completed everything in 2011?
Yes, that's correct.
5 years.
I studied for 2 years in Tsinghua.
Okay, so you have 1 year bachelor in Stanford after you spend 3 years in Tsinghua and then come here, right?
I spent my freshman and sophomore year in Tsinghua and my junior and senior year at Stanford. And then I spent 3 more years to finish my PhD and a master's degree.
Yeah, I think this is good stuff. So why don't you give you a simplified version of your bio? So I guess everybody comes here, most of them already know the story, but probably some of them does not know much detail about it. Maybe you can share your story, maybe from Japan, and then to Shanghai, and then to Tsinghua, and then Stanford, PIMCO, and then Abundy. How about that? Then we are deep into each detail.
Okay, sure. I can start a bit. I was born in China and in Sichuan, and my family moved over to Wuxi, Jiangsu province when I was like in grade school. So I started my grade school there, and then my junior high school in Wuxi. During like I think 2 years during my grade school study, like I followed my parents to Japan, and like in my 4th grade and 5th grade, and after I returned to China, I found that I could not keep up with the study in China, because Chinese kids they study so hard on mathematics, and I think I failed mathematics and Chinese and pretty much all the main subjects at school, and I was asked to maybe to go to lower grades and like try to study more before I'm able to go to junior high school. And but luckily, like my parents find a way to convince the principal of the university and try to give me a chance to study with my old classmates. So then I think I survived a few semesters, and then I went on to the junior high school. So after like all my path through grade school and junior high school are not so stellar. Like I think I'm among the last in my class in terms of grades, but I was lucky to come out of it pretty much narrowly meet the minimum requirements for my senior high school. And then after that, I went on to Tsinghua and studied for 2 years before I transferred to Stanford University. So at Stanford,
I heard you are in a I heard you are in a special program in Tsinghua.
Yeah, it's a special program. It actually selects 30 students from all over the country, and for like the best talents in computer science, and try to train them with advanced courses. But again, I was not the best students out of it. So it's like I was narrowly selected into the program. But luckily enough, I was recommended by Tsinghua University to transfer to Stanford University. And then there, I met my Ph.D. advisor, Professor John Chaffee. He invented ADSL and and made many more inventions. So I took the initiative as a junior student. I tried at that time. He just won like the Marconi Prize, which is a Nobel Prize for telecommunications. So his news stories are all over the Stanford campus, and he was giving a lecture. I think it's called Advanced Telecommunication Systems. Actually, that was a senior PhD course. But given my desire to study under him, with him, I applied to. I took his course and did very well. So he selected me to be part of his research lab, when I was a junior student. So from there, I was able to progress quickly and finish my undergrad degrees in another 2 years, and also take on more PhD courses, and at the end finish my PhD courses in 3 years, along with the MBA and the Master's in Economics degree. That was pretty much the story for my graduate study. And after my PhD, I joined PIMCO as a portfolio manager and worked there for 4.5 years until early this year. I left PIMCO to start my own company called Abundy. So the name comes from the dictionary, because my last name is Zou. I was always ranked the last. Whenever in terms of grades at PIMCO, we also write trade recommendations, but somehow it's also alphabetically listed. So my recommendation was always the last read. So I figured out if I want to start a company, I need a company name starting with an A. So I have a dictionary in front of me. I go through the first few. I think that probably one of the first was aberrant, which was not a good word, and then I go through one by one, and I found a word called abundant, which I like a lot, and that speaks to big data. That speaks to a lot of information out there. So I just made a small change called Abundy, and I looked for Google the domain names, and found that it's not registered yet. So I just took the name and started the company under this name. So the company is aiming to use advanced technologies to increase the efficiency of the financial industry. So I think maybe there will be more questions on what that means later. So I will just stop here.
Okay. Yeah, that is pretty simplified version.
Yeah.
So let us dig into the detail. So in Stanford, you got 4 degrees, and you completed it in 3 years. So here's 2 questions. So the first one, how did you do that? How are you able to manage that, get 4 degree, including a doctorate degree in 3 years? The second question, probably more important, why you choose to do so?
Yeah, sure. I can answer that. So as I was an undergrad at Stanford, I think I have a good friend who is like a very senior PhD student, probably in his 7th or 8th year, and I was I was horrified, like why it takes so long to finish the PhD. And turns out I asked him. He said like his advisor doesn't allow him to graduate because he has the project he is working on is not completed yet. And actually, like I double checked in his research lab, pretty much everybody graduates. No person graduates less than 7 years. So I asked him like. Then I asked him like I want to get prepared for myself, and I like a recommendation by him is like I try to find an advisor who lets you graduate in 5 years. So I kind of as a junior or senior students, I kind of somehow did my own research and tried to find a blacklist of advisors whose PhD students never graduates. And then like I have another whitelist, and Professor Chaffee was among the best because his students always finish on time, like in 5 years, and also he's such a prestigious professor that makes me want to work with him. So that was the probably like one of the first initiative I took, and secondly is that like since another fact is like a Professor Chaffee's students, most of them did very well in the industry. So he invented ADSL, and a lot of the alumni from the research lab went down to found new companies, like telecom companies. So that like it means like probably I don't need to spend 5 or more years because I pretty much before I apply for the PhD program, I know if I study like under Professor Chaffee, the most likely case for me is try to go to the industry or try to find my own company. So like that given that context, like my goal is actually try to finish my PhD as quickly as I can, so I can start to work on real world problems. Actually, my advisor also advised me to like spend more time try to think about real world problems. One thing he mentions to a lot of PhD students, unlike many other advisors, is like he says like spend like sufficient time on your dissertation, but also understand that it's like the 21st century, and it's not unlikely that your dissertation will try to solve some kind of the one of the century's biggest problems. So it's more likely after you spend more time in the industry and try to like spend more time in your career, and later on you solve like one of the most important problem in the career. So finishing your PhD early actually helps you to get more real world experiences. So with this advice, I think before I started my PhD, I kind of want to optimize the courses I take and try to make sure I understand, do a lot of preparation, understand what it takes to graduate. Like one thing I learned through checking the system is like the coursework of PhD is not much, but mostly like on the papers you write and you publish, and how much original research work you are able to produce. So I started to prepare for those very early in my study, and I think I published a few papers even in my senior year, and won some awards, and at one point of time, I was even thinking I could finish my PhD in 2 years because I started working in the lab when I was a junior. So but I wasn't very sure if I can finish in 2 years. So at that time, I was so as a buffer, like I think it's good to take a second master degrees in case I cannot finish my PhD at that time. So if I finish my PhD in 3 years or 4 years, I can have a second master degree. So I was a freshman, like a first year PhD student, and I was terrible in my English, but I go to present my papers and go to industry conferences in the industry a lot, because my research lab was actually holds a lot of patents on the DSL, and we were very active, like in terms of licensing Stanford's technology to industry, corporates, the corporate world, like AT&T, Verizon, and those companies. So at one time, I asked my advisor, I would like to take a secondary degree. I was considering to do a JD, just because I think it helps me in terms of my improving my English. But after hearing about that, he was laughing a little bit, and also asked me if I know what becoming an attorney means. I guess or do I want to become an attorney? I said I have no intention to become an attorney. I just want to improve my English. And then he recommended me, says why not Stanford, the JD program is probably one of the best, ranked the third in the nation, but the MBA program actually ranked the first in the nation. So why don't you apply to the MBA program? I'd be happy to write you a recommendation letter. So I followed his advice and submitted my application, and was luckily got into the MBA program. So that's pretty much the story of how I come out with a PhD and MBA in 3 years.
Yeah. So 2 follow-up questions. So first one, in reflection, why Stanford Business School admit you as an MBA student? Usually, so even if you are full-time professional, let me say that. Usually when you apply for the MBA, it requires at least 2 years of full-time working experience, and you don't have that. And even you have that, it's Stanford is listed as probably top 1 or top 2 best business school, right, in America. So people spend full time trying to get admitted, but they may not lucky enough to get admitted. What made you special? This is the first question. The second question is kind of, you also have the master in economics. Why did you choose to pursue that degree?
Yeah, I probably can answer the master in economics first. Because before I applied to the Stanford's MBA program, I heard it's very competitive. So I think it's likely I wouldn't be able to get in. So I started, but Stanford's master in economics is actually pretty easy for PhD candidates. So the only requirements to get into the master of economics is you are a PhD candidate.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it doesn't even have a admissions process. You just make sure you pass your PhD qualified exam, and you submit a piece of paper, and then you're a master in economics student. I think I started. Before, I think I applied for MBA pretty much in the spring quarter, but before that, I want to make sure I have a backup. So I took a lot of master in economic courses, and I didn't thought about pursuing it. But by the time I know I got admitted to the MBA program, and I already took too many economic courses to ignore it. But I didn't think about getting the degree until the very last quarter of my PhD program, because in the last few quarters, I figured I only need to take 1 or 2 courses to get the master degree, and why not? Why not just spend a little bit extra effort? And that's how I get the master in economics. On the MBA program, it's also I would say I was very, very lucky. I didn't know how competitive the program was, because I thought about applying for it at the end, pretty much to the end of the winter quarter, and actually I applied for the 3rd round, which usually admits less than 5 or less than 10 people per year. So if I knew how competitive it was, I probably wouldn't have even applied for it, because my ignorance actually helped me a lot, and I didn't know it was competitive, so I submitted my application. It takes. By the time I decided to apply, the deadline for the third round is actually like 2 weeks ago or 2 weeks later.
Okay.
So in mid-April, and still a lot of efforts try to find 3 recommenders and try to fill out the applications. And also Stanford's application essay is like notorious. So it's like what matters most to you and why. And I mean, when I write my essay, I don't even know what matters most to me and why. I just write some like just some average stuff, some stuff like and I think what helped me was reading my recommendation letter, I would say, because my advisor, when I gave a copy of my essays and application package to my Ph.D. advisor John Chaffee, and he looked at it. It's like he was like, there's something like a paid services, like essay writers. When you pay several $1,000s, you can find them. I mean, try to improve your essays. He was saying like, it's not so good. He don't think the essays are good at all. He says like, why don't you go to someone like a professional or even a native English speaker, try to help you improve your essays. Like, I was like, there's only 1 or 2 weeks, and I'm a poor student, so I ignored the advice, and I said like, probably not. I don't know where to find, and probably too costly for him. And he said, okay, that's fine. Probably I will write in my recommendation letter and try to help address the shortcomings of your essays. I think that's one help for the application. And the other thing is like when I was a senior student at Stanford and also first year PhD students, I kind of had the dream of becoming an entrepreneur before taking my PhD degree. So I worked together with several like MBA students on some very cool startup projects, like and with a few others on like engineering students and PhD. Like MBA students, like one of them is like the wearable contact lenses to monitor your blood pressure, your blood sugar level, like I tried it for, and those kind of things. Even though none of the projects like went down well, and we also visited like the VCs, like on San Diego roads, like one by one, but looks like everyone rejected our like a business plan, so that's why I ended up in the PhD program. But it still gets me a lot of good friends in the business school. So some other recommendation letters come from business school, my business school like partners, like who work together with me on the startup projects. And the last bit of luck I had is like I was lucky to win the Marconi Young Scholar Award in 2008. And at that time, the executive director actually knows the dean of the business school, so she said like, "I will write you a note to the dean," and probably that helped at all. So that helped me get into the program at that time, I think.
Wow, that's quite an interesting story. When you say ignorance, I would call it bravery. So now you have a PhD degree, doctor degree in EE, and you got trained in B school, and you have dreamed to become an entrepreneur, and you went out to find a job. Can you share your experience of finding job, and how did you end up with PIMCO?
Yeah. Okay. Sure. So some people ask me like there's some like a newspaper writing that you don't even know who Bill Gates was. When you apply for PIMCO, is that true? I say like that's absolutely true. That's that is well known within PIMCO even so. So I think by the time like I was very lucky because I didn't spend much effort preparing for my MBA application. I didn't know like how valuable the degree was at the time. So by the time I think the coursework is very difficult. So I as a non-native speaker, I was often struggling in classes, and often my classmates will see me like taking naps, like doing courses, like MBA courses. But by the time of the winter quarter, like I think in January or February, I think I had no idea like even at that time I should apply for a summer internship, but someone from my classmates are asking me like, because it looks like it's a huge thing for the MBA students, and also the career advisor asked me like, do you have plans for the summer? Like I was like, because I was a very good engineer, and also working on problem solving, like problems including like working on the new technology in the DSL space. I know many like senior managers or senior engineers in AT&T, Verizon, like those telecom companies. I think it will be very easy for me to get a summer internship. And actually for PhD students, sometimes it's not recommended to do a summer internship, because sometimes your research lab, they might have more important projects than what a summer internship can offer. So at the time, my response was like, I was so good technically, I couldn't think about a reason like why any like a technology company wouldn't hire me. So that's pretty much my first plan was try to find like more than 10 technology companies and apply to each of them. But the mistake I made was that I didn't apply through the School of Engineering career like affair, but I applied through the MBA like a summer internship, because my MBA, the business school career advisor says like, you had enough engineering background. How about you do a summer internship through the business school? So I applied for Microsoft, Google, pretty much all the big names, technology companies you can think about. And I thought I was very special. Like first, I was a PhD student, so I'm very good technically. And second, I was one of the few PhD students who are also studying for the MBA program. So I'm good both technically, and I'm also have a strong managerial skills. But turns out like all the interviewers who interviewed me say like, we agree you have a very good technical background, but like we don't think you are a good manager. You know about managing people at all. So because you don't have any work experience. So it's very on second thought, it's very natural I got rejected by all the technology companies. I think I even applied for like I even applied for some because most of the jobs like when they go to the business school are product managers. I think I even applied for a product manager of the Bing search like at Microsoft. Like they look at my resume, they are puzzled why I should be in the interview room. So because they tell me like it specifies like you need to have several years of work experience, and this job is for someone who is going to manage a team. So like I say I can manage. I thought I can manage a team, but like they don't agree. So that's why I think it was like a complete failure for me for the technology companies, and I think the same applies for the consulting firms. I mean, because the consulting jobs has client facing like functions, and also a little bit like of my ignorance, I didn't spend much time preparing for case interviews. So, but I applied to all the consulting firms, and it was very, it was pretty easy for them. They I think almost all rejected me in the first round of the interview. So I didn't go spend too much time like on that route yet. So after several weeks of applying for jobs and getting like 20 plus of rejections, I was a little bit scared. Like I couldn't find any summer intern, and at the time I went to my the career advisor and also my MBA classmates, and they said like, hey, the investment management firms and some financial firms, they are coming like later in the month. Why not you apply to some of them? And I said okay, like, but I don't know which ones to apply. So I find some classmates were like ex-traders, ex-investment bankers. They helped me pick like a little bit more than 10 names to apply to, and I use the names and try to submit my application to each of them. Luckily, Stanford is a very small school, so it's like less than 400 people at that time. So I think I wouldn't get a job if I was at Harvard because they have close to 1,000 students. So Stanford requires every employer to have 10 open slots for interview. So I think for some of the company I applied, they narrowly got 10 people looking for jobs there, because Stanford has a tradition of entrepreneurship. So many of them are already prepared to do an internship in a startup company in the summer. So I think I was very lucky, and also I think by I got into the first round of interview at PIMCO, and a lady interviewed me. After 3 or 4 questions, I could sense she got very puzzled. Because it appears she asked me some 3 or 4 basic finance questions I couldn't get any one of them. So she stopped and looked puzzled and asked me do you know who Bill Gates was? I just said I was pretending I am. Maybe looks like it sounds a familiar name to me. Okay, let's see. It looks like she gave up. She said, okay, Bill looks like Bill Gates is a founder of our company and also a legendary investor, I think. And then she asked me some engineering questions, and I think she has already. But somehow she got more interested, I think, at the end, by my engineering research. So she told me there's something called a Wikipedia, and you can search Bill Gates and try to look up what he has done. And also our company homepage is at www.PIMCO.com, and make sure you look through the company homepage before your second round of interview, and good luck on it. So I think I was very lucky. I even got a second round interview, and when I told some of the investment banking firms I got a second round interview at PIMCO, and they were very surprised. And the second round is I was even more lucky because I waited for all afternoon to wait for a phone call, but it turns out probably the portfolio manager was too busy on the trade floor, so I didn't receive any phone calls. So and by courtesy, the HR called me to apologize and said, because you didn't have a second round interview, so there's no reason for them for people to reject me, right? It hurts their reputation, so they invite me to the super day. So that's and I think I was also interviewing with a few other investment banks. So as I told them I got invited to the super day of PIMCO. It's wow, it's unbelievable. It's and one salesperson says I have my 401k at PIMCO. I'll make a bet if you got accepted by PIMCO, I will withdraw all my 401k from PIMCO. So there's no chance you'll go there, and just stick with us and don't waste your time with PIMCO. But luckily I didn't follow the advice. I was very ignorant, and I went on to go to PIMCO, and I didn't know some other folks from Stanford who were interviewing together with me on the super day actually have many years of asset management experiences, trading experiences, or someone even worked at the Federal Reserve Bank for several years, and they are on the same batch from Stanford. So I went to PIMCO. I think it's a Friday super day. I had another dinner with another investment bank on Thursday evening. So I didn't go on Thursday evening because I was thinking about having an informal chat with the recruiter of another investment bank. And I flew in on the morning of Friday, and I got into the hotel and across the street of PIMCO, and I knew the interview would start at 1 o'clock, so I tried to get there early, 15 minutes ahead. But somehow I got lost, in the hotel. I think there's so many doors, so many entrance of the hotel, and the other end was a golf course. I got lost on the golf course, and so by the time it was 1 o'clock, I made a phone call to the HR and says I got lost from the Marriott hotel to PIMCO. They said like how could you possibly do that? And but somehow they guided me back to PIMCO half an hour later, and it was like I think 10 interviews, and I missed the first 2, but somehow it got the attention of some senior recruiters. They says like this person is very special. He just like screwed up everything. We maybe we should. I mean, it's a summer intern is like the cost to a company is like nothing, right? It's like even you are paid you're paid like several grand or like 7 or 8 grand a month to do a summer internship, but that's a very small price to pay for asset management employer. So I think their conclusion was like they want to have me on the team of the summer intern team, and also see how it works. And if I didn't perform, it's also no-brainer to them. They just don't give me the full-time offer. So I think it's a low-cost experiment to them. But luckily, I did quite well over the summer, and got the full-time offer as a portfolio manager. So that was my quite long story of how I get into the finance industry without any financial industry background.
That sounds so interesting. So far you mentioned a lot of luckiness in your life. So you said you were lucky to admitted by Tsinghua. You were lucky to be transferred into Stanford,
yeah.
And you were lucky to admitted by the B school, and you were lucky to get hired or get an internship at PIMCO. So I'm wondering, behind all the lucks, there must be something you did. So maybe in the next question, can you share with us what you did made you special? So here's the question. So in the PIMCO, what is driver before your promotion? Let me step back a little bit. So in asset management industry, a young professional usually start as a research analyst. And then after maybe 5 years, they promote into the portfolio management position, and they call that graduation. So which is big deal, right? And your first job is portfolio manager. And 2 years later, you're sitting in the decision-making committee, the American Portfolio Committee. So what you did to make yourself promoted?
Yeah, I think the first question is like I do aware when I was hired by PIMCO, I was probably one of the very few, or the only one who hasn't any work experience before as a portfolio manager. So I mean, PIMCO's like work is a team working culture. So it doesn't mean like when I was a portfolio manager, I was making all the trade decisions. I was coming up with the trade strategies, but we also have senior portfolio managers. We have to decide and work as a team to make investment recommendations. So it's very, very different from a single manager, like a type of asset management firm. When there's a single portfolio manager makes all the decisions, it's more like a teamwork environment at PIMCO. I think the reason I was hired, like partly my quantitative skills and how it complements the rest of the team. So because it looks like the rest of the team has creative writing majors, has like other liberal arts majors who are very good in like analyzing the political environment, the investment environment, and they need a person who actually understand how, like are more fluent in quantitative analysis and doing back testing and coming up with quantitative strategies that are not correlated with some of the fundamental strategies. So I think that's the primary reason. That's for the work I did is probably just study very hard for my PhD, but to get into the position, I think if you want to be successful, or like moderately successful, or like you have to spend a lot of efforts and try to work on many different questions, many hard problems, and try. But if you want to be very successful, I think luck plays like over 50% or even 70% of the weight, and then the rest of the 30% comes from like other quality, like perseverance and hard work. So I think that's how I get into PIMCO. And as you mentioned, like how why I'm in the Americas Portfolio Committee is also from my work on the quantitative strategies. I think I took some initiatives and tried to coming up with the better investment frameworks or trade strategies that complements the thoughts, the thought processes of some other portfolio managers. So to the certain point that in those investment committee, they always discuss about what trade or what kind of investment themes we want to play. And when you are contributing enough, and they figure out they have to, before the meeting, come to ask you questions, and after the meeting they come to ask you questions, and then it becomes to a point they say like it's easier just to put him in the committee so we can ask him questions like when we are discussing like what kind of trades we want to do. So actually that's the most natural case for you to for your voices to get heard like in a big asset management firm. It's through like having something that you are specialized, you're providing another perspective that is not that is different from the players, the team members of the firm.
So you mentioned that now we understand why you are special in that team environment. So I would call that hard skills. So in addition to that, so what kind of soft skill do you think is important in the big corporation? And a follow-up question, related question is, for Asia professionals in the American corporate, there's a term called bamboo sailing, which is used to describe the obstacle that is difficult to overcome for Asia professional. So how do you feel about that? So how did you make any effort to overcome that obstacle?
Yeah, I think in terms of soft skills, and try to be more proactive and try to share your thoughts more actively with the rest of the team, it actually helps. I mean, like I think my combination of having an engineering PhD and an MBA actually helps. But in terms of soft skills, I don't think I was very good even in my professional work experience. So especially as a non-native speaker and also a foreigner, it's very difficult to overcome the cultural barrier. So what I tried to do initially was trying to be better in my trade analysis and investment strategies, but to a certain point, I found out it's even if you come up with one of the best trade strategies, if you do not present it well, if you not convince others, your trades will not get like a wide adoption, or it will not be followed by the majority of the portfolio managers. And at that time, I try to reach out more to my colleagues and try to establish like more dialogue, but I would still say it's not sufficient compared to the average like native speakers. As to your point, the bamboo seating of the Chinese, or like even to a greater extent non-native speakers in some professions like portfolio management, trading, or sales is prevalent. Because the language barrier, the cultural barrier, and also how you hang out with your colleagues. Like some of them, it takes time to change, and especially for engineering students, having an MBA helps soften the problem a little bit, but it's still very difficult. So for me, and also I also feel like to a greater extent in the industry, especially on Wall Street. I'm not speaking to my former employer, but to the greater industry. And it's like you see like a lot of Chinese folks, and when they have a PhD degree, they got assigned there's a stereotype that Chinese folks like are best in working on models, so they got assigned like a back office roles, or like a model, like a analytical working on the analytics team. So when I was so understanding the context, so I never emphasized that I have a PhD degree. I think having a PhD degree in a portfolio management work is a liability instead of an asset. So just make sure nobody knows if you have a PhD degree, and then people will come to you less on try to solve mathematical problems, and then you can focus more of your time on making trade recommendations and working on trade strategies. But that's an unfortunate truth to many non-native speakers. I think the way for us to improve is first. It takes many years. Even for non-native speakers, for you to understand so well about the foreign culture, it still takes time for the society to get to accept you your role. So the only thing I would say is it probably takes many years before this problem, the so-called bamboo ceiling gets resolved. It takes more than 100 years to overcome some of the gender biases, some of the biases for the colored people, and it's getting better, but still there's a long road to go, I think.
So I want to go back to the question about luckiness. This time from a different angle.
Yeah.
When I trying to ponder on your story, I observed two things in your experience, in your life. Maybe they are the driver, they are the reason behind your luckiness. The first is you choose your advisor, right? And you did your homework to choose it. And the second one is you're not afraid of failure, and you try it no matter how difficult it is. And that is in the interview. I can say that in the interview in PIMCO and also in the application of B School. So I wonder if you can share more story about from this aspect. For example, how about sitting next to the CFO or COO or CEO? Does that help you? Sitting next.
Oh yeah. So because I was I think it helps a little bit. I mean, when I joined PIMCO, I started on the derivative desk, but the derivative desk is one of the most important desks of the whole firm. So it's sit directly in front of the number one and number two people of the firm. So there's a lot of pressure, but I think by having enough the FaceTime in front of the senior people, actually that helps a little bit. That was one luck. I think. What was the other question?
Anything else like this?
Oh,
so I'm trying to say, if you can generalize what you can do to increase the probability, you got luck.
Oh yeah. I think it also applies to the entrepreneurship, right? So I just went to another symposium at MIT early in the day, and another speaker was saying the model of serial entrepreneur is you can fail many times, and but all your failure, the loss of your failure as an entrepreneur, at a small stage, is not too much. It's it's controlled. It's more like opportunity cost or a small amount of investment you get from VC. But once you hit big, it's the return is huge. So I think one strategy you can everyone can apply is do not be afraid of failure, and try to reach out a little bit more to do something which you thought you might not be able to do. So, for example, some of my luck was completely due to ignorance, applying to the MBA program in the third round without spending much time, even paying the money to find someone to help me improve my essay. That's not. I think that's not the proper way or the way to do that. But nevertheless, I still tried. If I didn't try, I wouldn't be able to get in. So and also the other thing is I try to set a goal of try to graduate in 3 years. Actually, that was very ambitious. But I did set a goal before I started my PhD. So try like increasing your luck, I think the one thing you can definitely do is like you understand, go beyond your comfort zone, because like you can try 3 or even 5 or even 10 great things. Like you can fail 9 of them, but if you accomplish 1 or 2 of them, it still makes you a great person. But if you don't have those goals in front of you, you will accomplish nothing.
That's pretty good. So we can say you changed your career path twice. The first time is from a very rising star in the academia area and become a professional in the industry. And the second time is, again, you're a rising star in the asset management industry, and you choose to quit and start your company as a FinTech entrepreneur. So can you share with us your thinking process and how did you make decision?
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing was very, very straightforward. So I did a summer intern at PIMCO. Before the end of the summer intern, they are pleased with my work and gave me a full-time portfolio manager offer to start the next year. And I understand I have a dissertation to finish. I have a lot of research paper to write, and I need to finish my PhD by the end of the next year. Otherwise, because and another thing I didn't know before I applied for the MBA program is like I didn't know I had to pay for the MBA program. I had the Stanford graduate fellowship, which says which is 4 to 5 year fellowship. I thought I could use a fellowship towards my MBA program, and but after I got accepted, I got a note from the School of Engineering. The fellowship was like earmarked for engineering tuition, because you have 2 years of MBA tuition to pay. So during the time, none of your fellowship can be applied. And what's even worse, because the fellowship come with a stipend, which gives you, but as you are enrolling in the MBA program, so you get nothing. You don't have the stipend. You don't have the tuition reimbursement, but they say we will put your fellowship on hold. So after you complete your MBA, you still have 4 years of fellowship if you want to study in the PhD program. so that's the news I get. But after I pay for 2 years of MBA, I found out it's a huge amount of money. And as an international student, I think it's 2008, 2009, so just during the financial crisis, the interest rate was very high. So when I just started, I think the financial office even saying at a certain point they were even saying they couldn't find a private loan for international students, so which they have to find another way. And at one point they're saying the interest rate is double digit or even more. So after paying for 2 years and having a job offer at the end of my first year MBA, I know I don't want to spend 3 or 4 years in my PhD program. Otherwise, the interest rate is even more than the stipend I can get from my scholarship. So that makes me determined to finish my PhD and MBA the next year, and also writing a dissertation takes a lot of efforts, and if you are combining it with job searching, or either in the academia or try to find a technology job, it's additional effort that I don't want to have. So by having a full-time offer, I think it's natural for me to accept and try to get my PhD completed. And the other thought is the portfolio manager offer, the salary was much higher than what a technical job can offer at that time. So I think even after work for 1 or 2 years after paying my debt, I can still have the option of being an entrepreneur or doing a tech startup. So actually it helped. I think within 1 year of my work, I paid off my student loan and I'm ready to do some startup work. But somehow it gets lazy a little bit. So by the 4th year, I got my MBA degree pretty early because I have no work experience. But Stanford MBA has a tradition of becoming entrepreneurs. So by the 4th year, most of my classmates have already started their own company, and some of them have even exited. So I always said, wow, I'm so like falling behind in terms of realizing my potential, or like and there's a motto of Stanford GSB which says like a change lives, change society, change the world, and looks like I only changed my life, so I haven't changed anything else. So by the actually last year, even at the beginning of last year, I was thinking about doing a startup, but I haven't. And another like advice to international students is like, if you have a PhD, do apply for your green card by yourself. So by the last year, the company applied for green card for me, but like at no cost to me. But they would not apply under the EB1, which is like a priority category. I think there's also some kind of the attorney also try to maximize the interests of the company. So by applying in EB2, which has like a long wait years for Chinese and Indian citizens, they make sure they are tied to the job longer than otherwise. So by the time I was thinking about doing a startup, I don't have a green card. So I spent another half a year like to get my green card. At this time, it gets more like I mean, the attorney keeps telling me it's another 3 months or another 6 months, but I know it's probably can take another year or two, because the queue kept getting longer. So I find 5 recommenders, like my professor and some other like academic friends I have, and including Vinserv, who sits on the Marconi Society board with me, who invented the internet, and like I was lucky to have their support and write me 5 recommendations. And I think I submitted for premium processing. It takes only 5 business days to get my green card. I said, like, I was so stupid. I shouldn't have waited. Like, I think that the only way between me and entrepreneurship is like having a legal way to work in the United States. So after I had my green card, and after like several more months, I came out and started my own company. I think that was a right decision for me, because I think working in big corporates, no matter how high salaries you have, you always change. You can always accomplish like the first thing of the model, like change lives, change your personal lives. But it's hard to change the society and change the world by working in a big corporate environment. So working in a startup, I have the luxury, and I have many opportunities to bring changes to the industry, and also try to bring the industry towards a better end, which I can imagine like in my mind.
Yeah. So you have 4 years working experience in the asset management industry, and you are an engineer by training. So it's kind of very natural to imagine you want to start up your company in the FinTech. When looking at next question is about FinTech. So when looking at this word, this term in Wiki page, it said FinTech is an industry composed of companies that use technology to make financial services more efficient. So that's pretty vague to me. Looks like when in my intuition, looks like FinTech is for something very new. Yeah. But by this definition, a lot of companies follow into that category. Like, for example, Bloomberg, FactSet, Barrow, right? So how do you define FinTech? What's your understanding?
I actually agree with the Wikipedia definition a lot. It's like a new technology try to make the industry more efficient. So the thing for me to work on is try to find as a startup, you don't have the luxury of almost unlimited resources. You have to be very focused on your first products. So for me, it actually means like the area I'm interested in is like applying AI and data analysis technologies, and try to improve the efficiency of portfolio management. That's I think the near-term focus of my startup.
Okay. So FinTech is a pretty wide range in terms of technology used, in terms of application could be. So you mentioned the technology on at least for your understanding, AI and data mining and big data is big part of it. So in terms of application, can you share more about it? asset management probably is something you are focused on. Can you, but you are looking for all the opportunity in this industry, right?
Yeah.
Can you share more about how FinTech can be used in what kind of applications?
Yeah. So one example is the traditional asset management industry. Like you have many analysts. Like for example, if you have an equity analyst, each of them can only follow like a little bit more than 10 or even less like companies, because you have to follow the like a minute, like the like quarterly release, like follow the conference calls, and follow all the industry, their suppliers, like their customers. So it's actually not very efficient. So for example, a very big equity management firm, they might have like hundreds of equity analysts. Each of them cover like 10 or 20, between 10 and 20 companies, and then they assemble teams of them and try to pick the best like performing stocks and try to make the investments. But there's a lot of human biases in this kind of investment processes, because some analysts who are better at like generating alpha or finding the best companies to invest in may not be very vocal, or may not be the best presenter. But some like horrible analysts who try just do the opposite, like try to find like try to always like have a bias and try to chase the market and try to buy the richest company they can ever find. Maybe a vocal person. So like when you put many different people with different like behavior biases in the same conference room, the better better in terms of investment capability, analysts may not be able to win over the argument against the other like less capable analysts. So I think one application, when you have enough data of the industry, and is like you can analyze the data and try to come up with a very structured framework, which tells you like to a certain extent under certain categories, like in terms of revenue, in terms of a supplier, in terms of you can even assign something like the likelihood, the biases of the company's CFOs, or the biases of the likely biases of the financial data, and also the market sentiment, and come up with a framework, and it just tells the portfolio manager that which companies are likely to outperform and which companies are unlikely to outperform, and that will save a lot of human work, and try to make the investment processes more easily manageable. Say before you have 1,000 companies and you have 100 analysts to cover 10 of them, but now you have a framework or some tools which helps you narrow down the investment scope from 1,000 companies to like 20 or 30. Then you can have a very small and lean team, and try to have a very high quality team, and try to make sure your investment strategy is solid. The one thing is, like, if you want to try to find 100 people, it's it's unlikely you can find 100 very good people. But if you are only trying to find 3 to 5 people, it's much easier work that you can find the best performing portfolio managers or analysts. So that's how, like, one example of having say big data or artificial intelligence, like assisted investment framework, can help increase the investment performance and efficiencies a lot in the industry. And the other thing is, like, I think probably I will just stop with this one example.
Okay, yeah, I totally agree with you that technology can make a lot of process and decision-making process more efficient. I want to focus more about quant investment because it looks like that is the focus of your startup, Abundy. Also you mentioned that the early customer of your company will primarily be institutional investor, including hedge fund, family office, investment management company, sovereign wealth funds, and among others. So looks at what is happening on this industry. Looks at a lot of things done by the quant investment. I have to call it FinTech already. For example, in the quant investment process, a lot of data is put into the process. Traditionally, we have the balance sheet data, income statement data, and also some new data like the news from the media and the supplier, customer relationship, and even the job posting on the web could become the input of the quant process. So from your company point of view, what kind of services do you plan to provide to make the decision-making process more efficient?
Yeah. So the first, I think the first comment is like I think the customer I want to focus for first is an institutional quality customer, because the retail customer they are not so sophisticated like pretty much all over the world, and by giving them more advanced tools, they might not understand it well or like use it improperly. So and try to make unnecessary losses. So by focusing on the institutional quality investors, that helps address some of the problems. The second question is like what kind of tools? I think what I imagine in mind is like not something as a consulting services. Like you can only do it for one company, like one investment manager. Then you have to do something completely different for a second investment manager. I'm imagining in mind is like more like a software as a service platform where you can do some kind of customization, but it's not like 80% or 90%. It might be even less than 10%. You can customize for different investors. So that makes the business model more scalable business model, and a lot of different institutional investors can use it. So it might be a web interface or like a cloud hosted like a solution where you can have a login ID, and then you can see your portfolio, you can see the recommended trade and the recommended strategies, and how your portfolio can be better like by applying some of the adjustments recommended by the system. So but ultimately humans, I think in the current version, humans is not a black box solution, and everything the system provides will be very intuitive, including what I have from a portfolio manager's perspective, but try to make sure it's more efficient. Because currently, like even a portfolio manager knows what to do, he might still spend 3 or 5 hours and try to figure out all the steps and try to look for the data in Bloomberg, try to put the data into Excel, try to do the analysis, and then come up with the strategies. But if for someone who already knows about the process and try to automate it, and then you can save many hours of a portfolio manager's time, and a portfolio manager's time is actually very precious, I think, especially given it's a higher paid job, or even for the analyst's time. If you can save like 3 hours of an analyst's time each day, and that's a huge productivity increase like to analysts and to the investment management industry.
Okay, so I have one last question before we open the question to the floor, and the question is about your company. So what is your plan to grow your business and to grow up your team, and what kind of talents are you looking for?
Yeah, so currently the company is in a very lean stage. So because I think when I started, when I just left my job, I got like advices from many accomplished persons who saying like who says you should spend the first 3 months to half a year doing nothing, and but only like chatting with people and having dinner and try to learn about the market, because you've been like in the corporate environment for too long, and actually launching the company too quickly might like led to a premature like a failure. I think I took the advice. I think some of them are very good. I think I started the company in January, and now it's April, around 3 months later. I would say my idea about what I plan to do or my early products are completely different from what I had envisioned 3 months earlier. So if I had took the path of my idea 3 months earlier and raised something like $10 million and try to work on the projects, probably after 3 months I will find more than half of my team are not the old problem is not solvable or not do not have enough revenues or users in the market, but half the team I hired, they are not capable of solving the new problem I'm thinking about. So that's one pitfall I try to avoid, and actually I think I did quite well. So currently the company is in a very lean phase, and the early people I hire, I make sure they are so versatile. So even exploring the problems, for startup, it's especially for new startup, it's very easy to change your focus or change your products multiple times during the first year or two. So having a team which is very versatile, and having a team with a very high quality team, make sure you can adapt to all the changes that are needed to a startup. So the person ultimately the person we will be looking will be from all kinds of backgrounds, but at the very beginning of the phase, actually the kind of person we are recruiting or working together with us are actually very, very high quality. So who have no problem in finding pretty much any jobs in the hedge funds, high frequency trading firms, big companies like Google or Facebook. So there's no for startup, for your first 10 or 20 employees, actually that defines some of your culture. You want to be very careful and try to make sure you select the person in your team setting a very high bar on having adding one more person into your team.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Zou. So maybe it's time for us to open the question to the floor. Sure. So the lady in white.
Is there one thing that you could say that differentiates you from the other players? Because I would assume there are probably a lot more players who want to stick their fingers in the pie. Is there one special thing about your product that differentiates you from other players?
Yeah. So the question was what are the one special thing of my products that differentiates me from others? So I would say for any products, at this stage, especially just 3 months after we started, it's actually the team or the core culture of the team actually defines how far you can go, in this kind of market. So first you have to have leaders or founders who understand the market very well, who are willing to take risks. And then the second, you need to have people who are very, very, very good in executing them. So actually, for the main competitor of us is actually like-minded entrepreneurs. It's never gonna be big corporates, because I've been in big corporate environment. I have friends in corporate environment. So in big corporates, it's very hard to have disruptive innovations coming from a corporate environment, because your core businesses are so profitable. So any new things will be seen as a distraction to the money generating profits you have. So if you look at the example of Google, so why Google will need to reorganize into Alphabet and try to separate the core search business from the other businesses is because before that, the search business or the advertising business is so powerful, all the other business just overshadows all the other businesses. So all the other businesses, they don't have incentive to innovate. They don't have incentive to become profitable, because they are hidden under one bottom line of the profits of their search business and the ads revenue. So So making that move, make sure the startup, the new area you're working on is no longer under the shield of your core business. It's actually like one big move for Google, and that's but like I would say it's very difficult for any big asset managers or any big corporations to make the same move as Google, because then you have to spin out different startups and you have to give out equities to the founding team. So to me, what differentiates us is more like the core team, the entrepreneurial environment, and by having like one of the best teams as an entrepreneur, and as long as we are able to do equally well or defeats other like-minded entrepreneurs, that's good enough. And because the big companies are, especially in new industries or new products, they are not your competitor until probably 3 or 5 months later, when the market is more mature, when it starts to generate a lot of revenue. So that's my answer to your question.
Hi, I have 2 questions. So the first question is, for people who are currently working in the financial industry and who want to become a portfolio manager, or who want to start up his own company, what kind of suggestion do you have? And the second part of my question is, when you decided to start up your own company, why did you choose to start a company here in the US instead of start a company back in China?
Yeah, I will answer the first question first. The first question is always try to spend more time and try to get your competitive edge. Try to understand how you can be different and how you can provide more value to your team. So if you are in a portfolio management, that means you need to come up with alpha strategies. If you're in an investment banking environment, which means after several years of working on Excel model or PPTs, you want to start to take the role of generating revenue and try to bring in clients to the company, so that can make sure you get always try to focus on the core businesses of the company you work on, and then you will be more successful. And the second question, actually, the company was incorporated in the US, but I'm also looking for customers in China, because I understand the cultural biases, the cultural background, and I still find it easier for me to do business in China and acquire clients in China than in the US. And also the market is is less developed in China, so it's there's potentially a lot of things I can do to help bridge the gap. So that's actually why I've been spending several weeks in Beijing, and just flew over from Beijing here to attend the symposium in the day and to give a speech here.
So can you give us more details about what your company is doing now? Can I understand so your company is trying to find a good trading signal in a much faster way?
So it's not precise, because probably one of the worst business model is try to sell alpha signal or trading signals to asset managers, because when you try to sell first it's unlikely they will pay you a high price for it, because the first question they have is if it's profitable strategy, why would you sell? Why don't you raise your own fund and try to run the strategy? And if it's not a profitable strategy, why would I buy it? Or it's always so it's not, and also it's more the trading signal is also you need some kind of secrecy in order to generate alpha. It's all because if more than 3 big guys knows about the strategy and they are competing on the same alpha signal, and actually nobody makes money. So you can think about the example as a telecom operators, right? Before, tens of years ago, when there's only one AT&T, it's a huge, or Bell Labs, it's a hugely profitable business. So it have enough money to support Bell Labs and try to do a lot of inventions, just because it's more like a cash cow. But at this stage, when you have AT&T, Verizon, like Vodafone, like T-Mobile, many different others, everybody are competing for the same kind of limited resources. So it just like it's not as profitable as it becomes. So that applies to trading signal as well. So the intention was not to sell trading signal, but try to provide a general framework which increases the efficiency of how or the like performances of how portfolio management should be done. So currently, the efficiency in the industry is still very low. The many hours a portfolio manager spends, even in one of the best firms, can still be quite wasteful, and quite can be reduced a lot. I think that's just the status quo of the industry.
So basically, what your company is doing now is similar to like a cancel that like company is doing.
I think it will be a more advanced version of that because what Kensho currently provides, to my understanding, is more like a historical lookup function. So it doesn't tell you what you should do to your portfolio, because I think the Kensho's founder's background doesn't have much portfolio management background, but more in the data science and statistics background. But if you one thing is to have a good backtesting tool, or a tool tells you what happens historically. It's more difficult to do predictive analytics. It tells you what's likely to happen in the future, or tells you a framework which you can adapt to and try to increase your portfolio management performances for prospective trades. So I think that's more higher value add. But to reach that goal, probably you need some kind of functionality, as Kensho does. You have to have like historical data, you have to have historical analysis, and then you have to generate like a new predictive power based on historical analysis.
Okay.
So my question is, Abundy is going to do.
Can you speak louder?
Institutional investors, right? But are you going to do also individual investors sometime in the future? And if yes, how do you deal with compliance?
So yeah, that's a good question. So the question was like Abundy's early customer will be institutional investors. If we go, so the first question is, are we gonna provide services to individual customers later? And if we do, how do we deal with the compliance at that time? So I think to a point is like, so my understanding like of individual investor is like, so if you look at the more developed markets like the US, a majority, like most of the flows in the market are from institutional investors. So by serving the institutional investor, you pretty much have most of the market share. And the individual investors in the US or in other developed markets, they rarely trade, or they trade through their just like a small asset allocation, like moving money, like you say, across their 401k accounts. So some of them are not even like alpha trading strategies. It's more like operational strategies. So it's like it's a question to me as well, like how individual investors will try to be active in managing their own portfolio, then like delegating their portfolio management to the opportunities to invest institutional investors in the developed markets. In some other markets, like for example, emerging markets like China, like the majority of the trades are driven by individual investors. So you can see individual investors drive anywhere between 60 or even 80 or 90 in some cases of the flow. But in institutional investors are a minority in the marketplace. So that's why the market is so momentum driven. And is so inefficient because the individual investors are more easily manipulated by like market information, rumors, or like some other market inefficiencies. So as a framework or like a software platform based on fundamental analysis, data analysis, or predictive analytics. It's also a question to me, like should they serve individual investor like in those in those like a premature market at all, because value investing may not work at all, like in some marketplace in China. And if you give them to individual investor, it just makes them lose more money, right? So like, but you can always start to change the behavior of gradually of those like more professional traders, or like starting from there and try to make sure the market gets more efficient over time. So based on this, I think it'll be pretty many years before we offer some products to individual investor, and by that time, I think the compliance, as to a question, the compliance landscape might be very different from the current stage. So probably if I'm gonna do it in 3 years, probably I'll think about the question and look at the compliance requirements in 3 years and make the decision if I still want to proceed on that route.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. First is, what are your strengths and weaknesses as a CEO? Second question, what's your risk management strategy in your company?
What's the second question?
Second is risk management strategy
Okay.
in your company.
Okay. The first thing is the strengths and what's the strengths and weakness as a CEO. I think the strengths is like I tend to be more optimistic, and I set very high goals, and I probably can set multiple goals, and I can be satisfied if I achieve some of them, not all of them. But the weaknesses are like I think for me, I need to pay more attention. Is like I sometimes I would say like overly ignorant. Or like I need to be, I think people like many senior people tell me, like you need to stay humble. You need to make sure you are down to earth, because by working on some of the projects like with a very low probability of success to them, it's like looks like you are a little bit reaching out too much out of the comfort zone. It's okay for your personal life, but if you are putting the stake of the whole team on the things you want to do, and when you fail, there will be damages to your whole team. You want to be humble. You want to be very prudent. And I took the advice, so that's why like I haven't scaled up my team yet. If there's only me personally at stake, probably I would try to be very aggressive and try to do everything I can. But if I have a team to work with, and especially working on tech startup, it's not as trading. So in trading, you can always cut your loss. There's you have a stop loss. You can eliminate your loss. Like after 10%, you can say I'm out. But once you are in a startup environment, you have 10 or 20 people work with you, and turns out the idea doesn't work. Sometimes you don't have a stop loss. You cannot fire people. Like say we burned like 50% of the money. We haven't seen any ends. Probably you cannot, because every person have a family attached to it, like behind them. So you cannot fire them and say, hey, we fire everybody. We start as crash. We still have 50% of budget. Like somehow you have to burn through every dollar you have, and in order to sustain the team. So that means like in a startup, sometimes, especially when you have team members, it can be more risky than individuals. Like you can do whatever you want. You have a lot of you can manage your risk, and you can say like I'm okay with sacrificing, putting in every penny I have, all the savings I have into the startup. But sometimes if you have 20 people working with you, and even putting all your assets into it might not be enough to sustain the team if you don't have a customer, if you don't have the good products, then it becomes then it requires you to take a slower path, be more prudent. I think to the second question of risk management, because the company is more like a technology company. It's not an asset management company. So the risk management, I think, to the extent the risk management applies to more like how you spend your money, like the money you have on your book, like and try to try to develop new products. I think our strategy is like we always try to do as much like market research as we can, and try to talk to every customer we can find out, and try to understand the supply, the demand, and also like what are the different players in the market, and before we take on the new project. I think that's the strategy we are going now.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, so for your product or solution that you're developing, are you targeting certain specific asset classes? Yeah, because I would imagine the process to develop trading strategies for those different asset classes, like equity, fixed income, should be a little bit different for portfolio managers, right?
Yeah. So for the question is like, does the product we have target different asset classes? So to me, my background is more in the liquid markets, like more in the fixed income space, like bonds, interest rate derivatives, currencies, commodities, or index futures. I don't have much experience in like individual stock picking. But what I try to do is I try to find complementary, fund managers or like analysts, research analysts who have complementary skill sets to mine. So in order to make products that works for our asset managers, you have to have the capability of pricing risks of individual stocks. So the other team members does have portfolio management skill sets in the equity markets, including equity stocks, ARB, or even high frequency trading in the equity markets. So that's complement my skill sets. So in that sense, we are able to provide a relatively like complete solution to potential customers. For some of the maybe illiquid stuff, like real estate or like those kind of stuff, like probably that will be at a later stage, later work for us to do, because in for big data AI, it applies. Probably the easiest application is on the secondary market, so with the liquid products, and I think that answers your question.
When you were at PIMCO, in addition to doing really well as a portfolio manager and generating ideas, how do you develop your network? How do you find people that you want to have on the founding team and your mentors?
So the question was like when I was at my former job, how do I expand my network or try to find people I want to work with, like for my startup? Okay, so the answer is like it's very difficult. The company is in Newport Beach, California. It's a relatively small town, and driving to Los Angeles takes 1 hour or 1.5 hours when there's no traffic. When there's a traffic, probably takes 2 hours or more. So I think and also the work is pretty demanding. So you follow the market of the of the East Coast. So you get up pretty much a little bit past 4 o'clock in the morning, and you finish your work at 4 or 5 o'clock. Or for junior guys, it's even longer. You can get up at 4 o'clock and finish your work at 6 or 7 o'clock sometimes. But as you get more comfortable with your work, and your work hours tend to get less. So that's typical in the industry. So actually, it's not a perfect place to expand your network. If you choose to work in Southern California, but it's a better place if you already have a family and you enjoy your family life. So if for young folks who want to expand your network and want to meet more people, I think staying in a big city like New York is much better. It's a much better choice. So I think you typically see people who work in Wall Street for multiple years, who have already developed their network before they move over to an asset management firm on the West Coast. I think my case is a little bit special, and I don't have any working experience, so I ended up there. But I do see the shortcomings of staying in Southern California.
So how do you get mentors, the senior guys that advise
you? Within PIMCO, I guess.
Yeah, I think you can reach out to different folks and different. I mean the mentor. I think you can try to find people on the different teams. But actually, if you are a relatively junior person on the team, pretty much your boss or all the other team members are more senior, like in age than you, and they can somehow help you, improve your I think at least investment capabilities. But if you want to find if you want a mentor for other stuff interacting with people or other having fun after work or how to then it will be a little bit more difficult, I would say.
So it's great to see you again. And I still remember a few years back that we organized the entrepreneur activity on the Laguna Beach, and it's great to see you that you're realizing your dream. And I think for everyone to know the early fundraising efforts for Abundy, and how do you set the valuation for the firm, and how is it going between you and the early investors? I know you got funding from your professor, and are there any other individual or institutional investors who were involved? And just share a little bit.
Yeah, sure. The question was can I share some story about the fundraising process of the company? Yeah, so in a short answer, I would say we haven't started to officially fundraising yet. So the early stage of the company, we will prepare to bootstrap the company for 1 year or even longer, and our early founders have the luxury, after working for many years, have the luxury of savings to do that. And as to the early investors, they are more friends and family investments, and actually in a very small amount. It's just let them demonstrate their support and try to have them in the network, so that as an investor we have the obligation, and they also have the incentive to follow up more closely with us. So it's not I would say it's not even priced yet. It's it's deferred pricing into the next round.
So just thank you, Dr. Zhou. For us, I think some of us come from the asset management firms that use quantitative process to manage money for institutional investors. So how do you compare your firm to these kind of firms?
Yeah. So the question was so there are many successful quantitative firms. How do I compare my firm to the quant trading firms? And the short answer is the quant trading firms, you are working on the alpha signals. You are generating alpha on top of AUM. But the technology company we are working on, we are not working on alpha signals at all, because otherwise we will be raising assets and try to make trade for ourselves. But we are trying to work on something which we think can be applied universally to, or almost universally to professionals in the industry, and try to help increase the efficiency of their work. Because no matter how good alpha strategy you come up with, if 1,000 people use it, and then it doesn't generate any money for the users, but also everybody loses money because they are chasing up the price by using one single common alpha signal. But what we are, I think that's exactly what we are not working on.
I have two questions about the FinTech idea that you have, the company. The first one is about data versus algorithm. So, what do you think about what's more important to success? Whether you get good data, or it's more your algorithm could overcome that. The reason I'm asking that is I think Bloomberg has done a lot of these things internally, and they have spent thousands of money, millions of money, and they have the install base to actually give them access to the data. And you would be amazed at how much kind of proprietary data that they have. So for a startup to compete with that, how do you kind of using your algorithm to kind of overcome maybe some shortage in terms of availability of data?
Yeah. So one thing is the first question is the importance of data versus algorithm to the success of the company. Which one is more important? And to me, I think a little bit more on the algorithm side is more important, because it's very difficult to compete with the existing data providers. You can, there are already very, very good data providers something like a Bloomberg, or like even you can buy data from the exchange. If you don't have the infrastructure, if you don't have the platform, likely you will not have the best data. But I would say like one caveat is like some of the data, even from the best data providers, they can still be corrupted, or they can still be like not like properly like filtered, or like properly like structurally prepared. So even I think the algorithm part of the work, like one work has to do is like try to do pre-processing the data, try to make sure the data is of sufficiently high quality. So actually, I don't know if that falls into the algorithm or falls into the data part, because as to my understanding, many of the data you get from like especially from the from the market, from the like on the shelf data, it's likely to be not of very high quality. So by having a successful platform, having a successful maybe product, actually the company has the probably one of the first job you need to do, and or even probably one of the most important thing to do is like try to clean up the data. So they can be fraudulent data entries, they can be error in the data, or there can be a lot of other things, or like even like some of the data may come from like there might be a typo in the data which changed the data by a magnitude of 10. But if your algorithm does not detect that, if you don't have or if the data can have a lot of fraudulent like activities or money laundering activities inside of them, so that you have to do a lot of work and try to make sure the data after cleanup is of a sufficient enough quality then for you to apply to the later algorithms. I think that's like probably one of the most important thing. As to like one rule of thumb, like preparing the data or clean up the data like to a data science project is always like 80% or even more of the work. And running the algorithm is important, but you only need to design it once. But you need to line up the data for pretty much all the new projects you have. So running the algorithm is actually like 10-20% or even less of the work. So that speaks to the importance of the data. But to the startup company, you are not a data generator, or you're not try to sell data to try to compete directly with some existing incumbents who are very good at selling data. So to the business perspective, your algorithm, especially cleaning up the data and try to make sure the data is of sufficiently high quality for later processing or analysis, is actually also very important.
Hi, good evening, Dr. Zou. Thank you to be at MIT. I'm Victor from the Messina team. So we also have a couple of friends to join this event through the online. Could you take some time to answer some questions from online?
Oh yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just pick up some.
Okay. So I probably just pick one question. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just the first question. The first question reads: it's very true that most VCs are investing in a great team and the market needs. That said, as a startup that focuses on FinTech, what is your core strategy entering into the market? Being a financial data signal provider, a high efficiency trading platform, or establish a new exchange. In other words, what is your vision and what has driven you to leave PIMCO and do this? I think in terms of this question, it's pretty much answered like in my previous questions, right? No answers, right? So I can skip this. And now question 2, can you talk a little bit more about the company? What's the current stage? What does the expect to start to operate? How big is the team? Yeah, I think this one is also answered. And I'll try the last one. I don't have top skill experience. How to make up this disadvantage? Any certification helps, like a CFA? Okay, I think I can take this one. So if you for people who don't have the top skill experience, I think what matters most to you is actually your core skill sets. Like, do you have the capability to do the work required by the startup? right? So if you want to be in a sales position, you want to make sure you are very approachable. You talk to people a lot. You reach out to a lot of people. If you want to being like a technology team, you want to make sure you spend a lot of time in practicing programming and also understanding some of the most recent algorithms, especially on the AI algorithms. So a lot of things can change even if you don't have the top school experience. And in terms of the certification, I think if you are trying to enter a new job, like something like CFA actually helps. But it doesn't help in the way that having a CFA actually makes you a more capable person in portfolio management. But it helps to demonstrate to a recruiter that you are committed to enter the profession. I think that's probably the only help. So even having a CFA doesn't guarantee you a job in one of the top firms, but it increases. I would say it only increases the chance of getting a better. Getting into the profession you want. So that's my advice. You can always it's always a probability theory. You can do everything you can. Like the every effort you put in will make you a little bit closer to reaching your goal or getting the job you want. But something but you never know what's but you will never be guaranteed that you will be able to reach every goal you have or getting into any profession you would like to, but you can do your best and try to increase the chance of making it happen.
So, previously we talked about the future customers many will be the institutional investors in the United States and China. And since you just came back from Beijing, I want to ask, what do you think will be the biggest obstacle for the product management for China?
The biggest obstacle, I think my understanding of Chinese market has improved a lot over the last 2 months after I visited Beijing, is previously I thought there's a huge demand for more advanced investment platforms which help them generate alpha. But later on, currently I think there's still demand, pretty much less though than I thought in the United States, because it's so easy to make money in China. So people don't focus a lot on actually alpha generating strategies. So because I mean some to some extent it's sad. I mean it's because most of the LPs or investors, they are individual customers, right? And they don't have much. They're not sophisticated investors, and they don't pay much attention to track record. So even some of the best performing Chinese asset managers, they don't pay much attention to generating good track record, or try to make sure their strategies make money for their investors. And then some of them are just saying we are releasing 10 products each year, and if we can get $10 billion out of it, 1 billion RMB out of it, and the next year, and over the course of the year, 5 will fail, 5 will succeed, and I'll somehow market the successful one and close down the 5 who fail. And next year I will release 10 more products, and I can get another $1 billion into the products. For some of those strategies, because the market is premature, the investor is not sophisticated, it actually still works. So there's much less incentive to actually improve the paying for superior portfolio management services, or make sure they have the best tools, and try to make sure to increase the probability of generating alpha for their clients. So that's one of their side. I think that's an obstacle, but over time it will improve, because as the market gets more mature and there's more concept of looking for track record, looking for a real outperformers, and also looking through the I would say the survival biases. Currently there's no good way to look at the survival biases in funds, like a release in China, or to some extent in the U.S. as well, because some big firms they market a lot of products to investors as well, and they close out the some of the worst performing ones. They spend a lot of resources to try to market the best performing ones, but over time I think the market will get better, and there will be more demand for more advanced, better investment strategies or platforms that makes money for the investors.
We talked about a lot of the machine learning applications in ventures like this. So I'd like to take a liberty to ask a question on that direction, which might interest a lot of the machine learning experts here. From your perspective, what's the insight that's the major difference between machine learning applications that you would envision useful here compared to applications that are more visible and established, like in video, in image, in speech, and in text? And further, if let's imagine in a time frame of maybe a year or two, when the startup starts to expand and then be more dedicated into specific applications. I think in one of your introductions I read about natural language processing, for example. If you start to grow into that application to serve the purpose of the venture, then what kind of expertise would you be looking for to start such a team working on that aspect?
To summarize the question, I think the question was like, what kind of machine learning, how is machine learning different in finance compared to other industries, like more mature applications like face recognition or like voice recognition. Yeah, I think I think the most important thing is like in finance, there's so many behaviors of market players involved. So it might not be a fixed kind of a fixed problem at all, because you have to consider all the different market players and their behaviors. And also in the financial industry, it changes over time. The regulations changes. And also the market player changes, and the behavior of the market players also changes, and the psychology of a market player also changes. So applying any kind of algorithm, you have to make sure your algorithm can adapt to the changes, or you leave sufficient buffer to the unknowns, or the tail risks, or people that use the popular buzzword like the black swans. But for the face recognition and or other stuff, it doesn't change so often. Like probably you can put on glasses or take off your glasses, and probably the only chance is like you do a plastic surgery, and then at that time probably you have to retrain the model. But other than that, probably it doesn't change over many years, right? So that's like one big difference between applying machine learning on the financial industry compared to the other industry. I would say there's a lot of experiments going on, so I wouldn't say, and a lot of innovations that are needed in the machine learning and try to make it more efficient. So actually that makes the problem more interesting. It's just because the problem is more difficult, so it's unlikely that like every person will have the perfect solution. So that and in that space, in that sense, like having a good team or having one of the best minds working on a problem actually can make a difference.
Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing with us your story. So the question is, what is your pricing model for the Abundy service, and what is your plan to align your interest with the data providers, or maybe that doesn't matter to you?
Yeah, I think the current pricing strategy, which means 1 month or in 2 months, given we are a startup of only a 2 or 3 month history, is like a per subscriber based. I think that's best. It helps address or you can have volume pricing as well. It's more like a software as a service. You can have different tiers. You have different tiers per user. You can also have volume pricing, which gives a discount to large purchasers. That's the current strategy.
Yeah, and also, what's your how do you align your interests with the data providers?
The second question is like, how do I align the interests with the data providers? And I think the simple answer is like we are not trying to be a provider of raw data, but we are trying to be a provider of more sophisticated or processed data, or like data like after analysis. So we might even require our subscriber to have basic data subscription from external vendors. So then that's a perfect aligned. We don't control the pricing of the external vendors, but we probably will try to suggest a few of them for them to use, and then like apply our platform on top of that.
Thank you.
I'm very curious that your views on longer-term impacts of your company and like financial technology companies such as yours on the portfolio management profession. Do you see it as entirely unrealistic that something like your company or this type of companies will replace those portfolio managers or in the long run?
Yeah. So the question is like, would after you make the portfolio management more efficient, would people like a way to replace the jobs of portfolio managers? I think we can look through the history. I think portfolio management through the active portfolio management was not actually a very new concept. I think it's only have like 40 or 50 years of history, right? And the industry does get more efficient, but also the efficiency goes more towards like making sure the resources utilization of the society is more efficient. Actually, the number of portfolio managers doesn't drop. It's more towards making their job more efficient and making sure the market is functioning more efficient, and making sure the benefit to the society is even greater than a society with underutilized like asset allocation or resource allocation. So I think in the future it can go both ways. And one way is like if there's no demand for better performances or like a resource allocation among the society, when you make something more efficient, the number of person working in the industry will drop. The other case is like if the demand for better resource allocation or better investments like in the society is even greater than what your efficiency can bring, and then probably the number of portfolio managers will even be greater. So both cases can happen.
So we are approached towards the end of the session. So we can have one last question.
The phase 2, the phase 3, right? It's more like a startup. When you start with something, you want to be very focused, but after you have established your ground, there's a natural way for you to extend to. So there are different areas for expansion we are thinking about, but I think the potential, the market size can be tens of billions of dollars, like in terms of the valuation of the company, or even like over 100 billion or even more than that. So that's the aim we are having, at least at this stage. But we know, like, in order to reach that scale, you have to do it step by step. So the first products may not be generating a lot of revenue, but over time, you want to make sure you become at least the next unicorn or the next decacorn, and then to take that's how you bring changes to the society and bring changes to the world.
Well, it's my great pleasure to talking with you today, Dr. Zhou. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your insight about the FinTech industry, and your vision about your startup, your baby, Abundy. So wish you your great success, and as you always has in your past, in Tsinghua, in PIMCO, and in Stanford.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.